not sure exactly who this is for, but I know that it is for someone because I woke up this morning with such a clarity and a conviction to write. And the thing that I wrote came out with such precision, and the energy wouldn't let go of me until the whole thing finished. And so I know that it's for somebody. So, whichever one of you manifested this, good job. Congrats. Hi. Hi. I think I like you. Um, I wrote a few pages this morning. I'm going to read them to you. Starts with a quote. Art is the place where we come to reveal ourselves, not to hide. And that quote is by me. Your art wants you to tell the whole truth. You want to tell your whole truth. You are not creatively blocked. You are simply not in right relationship yet with the truth that is. So, of course, you're having trouble expressing it. How can you express a part of yourself that you are not in full approval of? You also have a really high bullshit meter. You are not happy with your work sometimes because intrinsically, you know when you haven't told your truth yet. You know when you haven't hit it. So you don't want to put it out there because you know that it's not actually a proper representation of the fullness of who you are or the fullness of who you were in the moment when you created it. So the apprehension towards putting things out there, and also the apprehension towards even sitting down and creating the things, makes total sense. The good news is this: you're not broken. Nothing is wrong with you. You are still an artist, even if you haven't put out anything in a long time or ever. The issue is not that you don't have discipline, well, at least not in the way that you're thinking. So, the discipline that you need is less about figuring out your process in terms of setting a dedicated time to sit and write every day, even though, of course, all of that absolutely will help, but that is not the message that wanted to come through today. Side conversation. I hate the word discipline, so let's change it. Instead, let's use the word practice. Discipline versus practice. Doesn't that feel better? Doesn't practice just feel immediately smoother in your nervous system? The practice that you need is, side conversation again. Blech. The word need doesn't really feel nice either. It brings up ideas of obligation, which bring up ideas, or at least for me, of rigidity, harshness, rules that have to be followed by the shame that will inevitably swallow me when I break those rules. So let's try this again. How about this? The practice that will nourish you, ooh, yeah, nourish, that sounds better already. The practice that will nourish you is to keep showing up for yourself as much as possible by telling the truth. In your world, in your life, tell the truth. If you are underexpressed in your daily life, as in, if the truth of who you are and what you feel and what you want is underexpressed in your daily life, this could look like you don't create and honor your own boundaries, or you say that you're fine when someone asks how you're doing, even when you're not. Like, you don't admit the full truth even to yourself and know how to hold that at the very least for yourself in your own heart and your own mind. If that's you, babe, of course you're struggling when you sit down and write. Look, you get good at whatever you practice. And if you practice dimming your truth most of the time, you're not going to be good at expressing it when you feel like you want to. Truth telling. Truth telling is not a switch we can turn on and off. Our inner truth teller is not a machine, it's a muscle. And if you don't use that muscle, the muscle will weaken and it'll atrophy. That means that it even shrinks in mass. Um, things, wow, I'm not going to explain this very well because I don't know about science, but the little pieces of, wow, let me really try. Um, Little pieces of tissue, fibers that make up your muscles aren't going to be firing that the way that they should be. And so when your muscle atrophies, it stops working and gets smaller. And if we think of truth like that, it totally makes sense that if you're not practicing telling the truth in different places, that you can't just all of a sudden show up and be able to tell it. When we think of the truth telling muscle as a muscle, it helps to remember how much that muscle needs to be nourished and exercised and even rested, sure. But we can also think about our truth telling muscle or that part of ourself as an instrument. In fact, let's actually think about it like a singing voice. Let's say that when you were young, really, really young, you had an incredible singing voice. Like you were one of those little kids who would go on America's Got Talent and you couldn't even spell your own name yet, but you just were singing down the house. Let's say that when you were really young, you could sing like Patti LaBelle, like booming high notes and the like. That's you when you were young. Now, let's put you into adulthood. And now you move into an environment where no one sings, there's no music at all. It can feel so scary when you want to be the person who gets up and sings because you know that you're a singer and you know that people need and will appreciate music, but nobody around you is doing it. Or at the very least, for whatever reason, you don't feel safe to get up and sing. Why would you not feel safe to sing? Even if nobody in that environment said, hey, don't sing, why would you not feel safe to sing if you know that you're good at singing and when you were younger and less inhibited by the rules of society, you could sing like Patti LaBelle? Well, there are a number of reasons for that. You might be scared. You may assume that nobody will like your songs or the voice that's going to come out of your face. You you might feel like you don't really remember how to. You might remember the last time that you sang and somebody shamed you or punished you for it. You might remember the last time you sang and how it made the other people around you feel intimidated, and maybe they got jealous and they tried to bring you down a peg because you were shining while you were tapping into your talent. If you're in an environment where no one else sings and you all of a sudden get up and try to sing, people are going to look at you funny if nobody around there is singing. And worse, if you get up in an environment where no one is singing and you try to sing and your voice cracks, or you quote unquote fail, quote unquote make a mistake, whatever that even means, people will drag your body. So you can end up with this feeling like you want to sing and that feeling doesn't go away, and you're not exactly sure how to, but you can't shake this feeling or this urge that you need to sing. If this has been your reality, let's say you go home and you think, hey, when I was a young warthog, I loved to sing and I was actually pretty damn good at it. And some of the people I really admire in the world are singers. And some of the people I really admire in the world really appreciate and understand singers. And I think I'm one of those singers. I think I'm one of those people who's supposed to be here to use my voice to soothe people and make people think and to comfort people and to encourage people, or even if it's to lovingly interrogate people or norms that I feel like I might be one of those people who's supposed to sing. In fact, I think I am one of those people. And when I was young, I could sing, 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 sing. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to start to sing. And then you go and you open your mouth and you try to sing the Patti LaBelle song that you sang when you were 8, and your voice doesn't seem to want to or know how to do that anymore. Terrifying, devastating, heartbreaking. I'm using Patti LaBelle specifically in this metaphor because that's a very big, expansive, and healthy voice. That style of singing requires a certain amount of upkeep, a certain amount of power, and it's also a type of singing. I mean, I think all singing is kind of like this, but specifically that style, it's like you have to be moving with spirit. Like you have to feel the conviction. It's why there's such a huge link between gospel singers and artists who started singing in church or in religious spaces who end up in the music industry because they're actually filling up with spirit and channeling that. And yes, that is something that you were able to do when you were 8. But baby, if you have not practiced very much in the last 20 years, you can't open your mouth and just be hitting, you know, these high notes for antipathy. You can't do that. That's not where you are. But the good news is just because you're not there today doesn't mean that you can't be there tomorrow. The fact that you opened your mouth and you couldn't hit those high notes and your voice was cracking doesn't mean that you shouldn't be singing. It's just an indicator that you have not been practicing enough. You are so much closer than you think to writing your thing. All you have to do is practice. The practice that will nourish you, both on and off the page, is actually fundamentally it's to tell the truth. If you're singing, the way to get better at singing is to practice singing. The way to get better at hitting those notes, at your breath control, at your pitch, at your ear, is to practice. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Do you remember when we were younger and it felt like telling the truth was more important? I wonder why that is. I wonder if it's because when we are young, we are fed these sort of moralistic stories about being a good person and being honest. I wonder if society's shift away from that as a priority is just a manifestation of my own perceptions, or if our culture really has changed and doesn't value those things in the same way. Either way, your job is to tell the truth. And I know that that feels expensive and spicy, but I repeat, the practice that will nourish you, both on and off the page, is to tell the truth. I believe that the way you do one thing is kind of how you do everything, which is inconvenient, but I think that there's something to it. Tell the truth in your life. Listen, I'm not saying that it's necessarily in your best interest to walk up to your boss right now and tell him how much you hate him and that he's really embarrassing and that he smells really bad and that you think he's a worthless piece of shit. Don't now go start shouting at people at work like, Makambisi Mamba told me to. My friend, use your discernment. You maybe want to approach him in a different way for a number of practical reasons. I mean, maybe that is the move. Maybe you do need to go yell at his bitch ass, but that might not be the case. Use your discernment. But what I can say is this. First of all, there are many moments and scenarios and spaces where we have to prioritize our own health and safety, and I trust you to know exactly when and where that is. So while you might not be able to tell your boss that he's a trifling ass bitch, you might be able to set a few boundaries. At the very least, you have to be able to tell the truth about yourself to yourself. That is what you really think and feel. And if you're willing to really sit in it and if you can manage it, why you think and feel the things that you think and feel. Or at least to be able to sit and investigate the answers to some of those questions. If to no one else, you should know deep down what is true for you, even if you can't express that part fully in some of the spaces that you frequent. I get it, but my point is that truth within you still needs to be fully expressed. And if there are places where you can't tell the truth for whatever reason makes sense to you, my hope and prayer for you is that you can know when those spaces are. Because if you're in a situation where you have to not tell the truth in order to survive, in order to keep yourself safe, I want your brain to know the difference between this is the lie that I'm telling so that I can survive this space because that's the only thing I have available to me right now, versus I'm telling a lie, but actually maybe it's not a lie, maybe it's the truth. You need to know what your own truth is. Look, I don't know your life, and like I said, please use your discretion. I trust you, and also this is what I know. I know that if you want to write the type of cool shit that I know you want to write, because otherwise you wouldn't be listening for this long, and if you feel like you're meant to bring those ideas to fruition, which I know you feel that way, because if you weren't meant to bring those things to fruition, you wouldn't want to. You wouldn't have the desire, and you wouldn't be plagued with this never ending nagging feeling that you should be creating, or that if you could just find the time or the space and actually do the thing, you might actually be really good at it. Those types of thoughts only come to people who know that they are capable and here to do a certain thing, or even if it's to experiment, even if it's not that you're supposed to be good at it or make money off of it, but you have these recurring desires because they are meant to be explored and expressed. I know that you are that type of person because it is only that type of person who would actually manifest this message to come through me. And I think to an extent, we're all that type of person. I spoke recently with a client about how, because she's such a creator and a generator, that she's always going to have more ideas than she can action on. And there's certain ideas that we are supposed to action on that are very specific. I'm supposed to write this book, for example. This book is going to be about this. Sometimes those ideas come through with such a consistency and a specificity. That's how we know that that's the thing to action. On the other end of the spectrum, when it comes to the ideas that we receive and the inspiration that we download at different times, there is a part of my brain that wants to learn how to speak French, and also wants to take cooking classes, and also is curious about crochet, and also wants to get really good at ballet, and also is like, the mandolin, should I try the mandolin? And also has different ideas for different YouTube channels that I can start, and also thinks that I could be really good at being a florist. There is a part of my brain that comes out with all of these ideas that are seemingly random, but they're not. What those ideas are actually just the raw energy of me being a creator, wanting to express in some way, shape, or form. Choose your love languages, but everything that's trying to express through all of these different outlets is actually just truth. It's this creative energy that we're all born with, all like every single one of us. And there are some of us who are born with a lot of this energy, and we are specifically guided to express it in very artistic ways. And I believe that if you are watching this, listening to this, then you're one of those people. So if I'm right about this, take a deep breath with me right now, if this is you. No, like really do it. And if you did it already, do it again. Ready? Well, let's just do 3 because 3 is a nice number. Inhale, hold, exhale. That person is you. That person is you, and it's okay because that person is me too. My name is Makambe. I am obsessed with stories. I love telling them. I am an OG theater kid, if you can tell. I love helping other people tell stories. I I firmly believe that stories are sacred. I know that stories are medicine. I know that stories are always spiritually potent. And I also believe that as a human being, stories are our birthright. I really love coaching people through creative blocks and helping their stories come to life. And if you are interested in working with me personally, I will put all the information in the description box, or wherever it makes sense to put the information. Um, anyway, regardless of that, I want to offer you my favorite and most potent writing exercise for when yes, even me, more often than you think, I'm disconnected from my truth muscle and I need to reconnect to it and I need to get it back into shape. This exercise is called 15 Things That Are True. And 15 is the number that I like right now, but sometimes it's 10 things, sometimes it's 12. So 15 things that are true evolved from the fact that I used to and still do morning pages from Julia Cameron's The Artist Way. And in a nutshell, that practice, if you're not familiar with it, consists of writing stream of consciousness pages every morning, 3 pages. And you do it the first thing when you wake up. After doing that for several years and being wowed by the truths and the insights and the ideas that would flow out onto the page, a part of me somehow subconsciously figured out how to eschew the vulnerability required for that practice to properly work. And I would just be writing some bullshit on those pages. I would be writing some fucking caca on them pages, y'all. And bullshit is fine. Like, it's my moleskin. I can do what I want. But what I realized is that I was actually using the pages to avoid rather than to go deeper. So instead, I gave myself the following journaling prompt. The prompt was, make a list of 15 things that feel true, really true in this moment. And that's what I did. I made a list of 15 things that felt really true in that moment. And all of a sudden, it's like floodgates opened. I regained access to my truth muscle. I think it's because I felt really freed by the notion of in this moment in the prompt. It kept me from censoring myself, and I felt like I was able to acknowledge that any of the messy truths or ideas that were coming out onto the page were not necessarily representative of every single part of me for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? It was just, this is what feels true in the moment. If I die and anybody picks up this journal, they'll be able to understand that what I wrote today is not necessarily what I believe or will believe for the rest of time, but it's just what I believe is true in the moment. That gave me permission to be tender and crass and bold and even a little shitty, because sometimes it feels really nice to be shitty. Sometimes it's fun to be shitty. Sometimes it's fun to be shitty, like your boss. He. Okay, so so whenever I do this practice, some of the truths that come up are fairly mundane. So here are a couple of examples. I feel more tired than I expected from doing that dance class yesterday. Another truth. I think that my neighbor is genuinely a kind lady. Another truth. I'm craving pork belly, but also who the fuck is trying to get up and go to the grocery store right now and then buy and then cook said pork belly, right? Sometimes these truths are just kind of like basic facts, but they do acknowledge and they are honest representations of what I'm thinking and feeling. Now, other times, the truths are spicy and uncomfortable and multi layered. So here's an example of one of those. I really want to reconcile with so and so because I miss them, but at the same time, I'm still mad at them and sad at them. And every day I feel confused and frustrated about it, and I can't stop thinking about it, and I don't know what to do. These types of complicated, multi layered truths are the juiciest, juiciest. I can't stress it enough, juiciest. And being able to acknowledge them every day without shame or blame or make wrong or judgment, and with the understanding that these truths are allowed to change as much as they are allowed to stay the same, is the key to rebuilding that muscle and rebuilding a sense of trust and approval for whatever that muscle has to say. We shy away from those types of truths because they're uncomfortable, sometimes deeply painful. We try to oversimplify them or avoid them altogether because of all the reasons you already know. But it's actually in the nuance of those types of truth where the vibration of your creation lives. Look, you do not have to put every single truth you have out there every day, all the time. Duh. Use your discretion, but know what is true for you. Be in approval of it, even if it's something that you don't like, even if, and maybe especially if it's something that you want to investigate or you want to change. Be in approval of the fact that this is the thing that feels true for you in that moment. And then exhale. Baby, once you do that, you will regain the ability to sit with yourself and express. Your pen cannot wait for you to pick her up and dance with her because you're not blocked, babe. You're simply being invited by your creation to sit with the most intimate part of yourself and write from there. It's supposed to be vulnerable every single time, but I deeply trust you to be able to handle it and to take really good care of yourself. You're amazing and smart and kind and lovely and funny. And I honor all of your wild and quiet and complicated thoughts. I'm proud of you for being the type of person who thinks so deeply about the world and about their art, and for being the type of person who has a deep sense of integrity and responsibility around what they put out into the world. That is an indicator to me that you are a deeply compassionate and intelligent person. And I love that for you. I love that for me. I love that for all of us because the world just needs more of your quality of human. And I know that I'm right about you being this type of person because if I wasn't right, you wouldn't still be here. So the fact that you're still here means that you are my people. Hi. Hi, soul friend. Hi. Hi. How are you? Hi. Nice to see you. I'm giving you a hug. Yeah, I'm sure of this. I'm proud of you. I am rooting for you. Let me know if there's any way that I can help. But either way, feel free to let me know how it goes. And I can't wait to see what you create. Okay. 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 I know whenever like the channeling is done or like the video needs to end because I get all of a sudden so self-conscious and I'm like I just feel like I don't know what to do with my hands or my face or my life, and then I get awkward and then my shoulders start doing this thing. I'm gonna end the video right now. Thanks for watching and for listening, and happy writing. Love you. Bye.